Sure. We'll go ahead and get started. My wife informed me that I accidentally started like 7 minutes early this morning, but that's okay. It just got you to the food a little quicker, so that's not a big deal, right? Just a few quick announcements. Next Sunday, we're going to have our song service next Sunday morning. So still time if you've got something that you want to sing for us. Clint and Jody, you guys go ahead and get your duet going, and we'll get you squared away for it. So, but anyway, if you got something you want to sing, let us know. Be thinking about some songs that you want the congregation to sing. So that's next Sunday morning. And then we're still taking donations to sponsor children on the Hillcrest Angel Tree. See Miss Becky, Miss Brittany, or Miss Angela. And that goes through the 25th, November the 25th. So just be thinking about that. Anything else? Don't forget, too, you can still look. They were cleaning out some of the rooms downstairs. So if you didn't go by this afternoon or right after service, there's some stuff downstairs that if it has some sentimental value to you, or if there's something down there that you just would like to have, they're on the tables down there. So be looking at that and seeing if there's anything that interests you. Wow, the back door just opened by itself. It's kind of creepy. Any other announcements? No? Do we have any prayer requests this evening? Anything we need to add to our prayer list?
Could you add Gary Boone, Duhne? He was hunting this morning and fell out of sand and broke his pelvis. They shipped him to Little Rock for surgery.
Let's be in prayer for him and that family.
Who did you say? I didn't hear it.
Gary Doom, you said? Dune. Duhne. Anybody else? No? All right. Brother Paul, would you open us in prayer? And as soon as you're done, we will sing.
We'll be in the Heavenly Highways tonight. First selection, 219, and then I'll take selections. Oh, they tell me of a home far beyond the skies. Oh, they tell me of a home far away. Oh, they tell me of a home tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, they tell me that he smiles on his children there, and his smile drives the sorrows away. And they tell me that no tears ever come again in the lovely land of unclouded day. Oh, the land of cloudless day. Oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day.
304.
304. I'm traveling through this world of sorrow. I'm on my way to Holy Land. I'll not turn back for some tomorrow. My trials here, I'll understand. I want to know more about my Jesus. I want to know more about my Lord. I want to know more about that mansion I'm gonna receive as my reward. I want to know more about that homeland. I'm meant to go there someday, somehow. And after I reach that heavenly city, I need to know more than I know now. I'm glad I know the blessed Savior, for through His blood He set me free. Though rough the road, I shall not waver, for some glad day His face I'll see. I want to know more about my Jesus. I want to know more about my Lord. I want to know more about that mansion I'm gonna receive as my reward. I want to know more about that homeland. I need to go there someday, somehow. And after I reach that heavenly city, I need to know more than I know now. He promised when his soul ascended, I'm coming back, the Lord can say. If on his promise you've depended, on wings of love you'll soar away. I want to know more about my Jesus. I want to know more about my Lord. I want to know more about that mansion I'm gonna receive as my reward. I want to know more about that homeland. I'm meant to go there someday, somehow. And after I reach that heavenly city, I need to know more than I know now. We have one more selection?
73.
73. Somewhere there is a land where dreams come true, where skies are ever bright and blue. The dreams I cherish here will
Thank you guys, by the way, for this morning and this afternoon. That blessed me and my family. I want to thank each of you who gave cards and gifts, and thank the church and for everybody who made the meal and set it all up and everything. Thank you guys from the bottom of our heart. We appreciate it very much. But thank you guys again. If you have your Bibles with you, turn to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. So we've been talking about the fruit of the Spirit, and specifically we've been talking about the fruit of peace, looking at what it looks like in our lives as Christians, what it should look, the way in which we have peace with our inner selves, peace with God, peace with others, and because we said there was four relationships that man was created for, that God created man for, and of course that being relationship with God is our first one, relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, and then we're getting to the relationship that we have with God's created order. And that was our last look, and that's what we're going to be looking at tonight, is how can we have peace with God's created order? What does it mean to have peace with God's created order? So let me pose that question to you. What do you think it means to have peace with God's created order? Is that like a hippie thing, or are we to have peace, love, and war with the trees, and no war, with the trees and all of that? What does it mean to have peace with God's created order? What does that mean to you when I say that? Okay. Okay. So not to abuse it, to be a good steward of it? Certainly. Let's look at Genesis 1, and then we'll be in verse 28 here. It says, "And God blessed them and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God said, Everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And of course, there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day." So certainly, while humanity is God's appointed steward of creation, creation ultimately belongs to whom? God, right? It belongs to him. The earth is the Lord's. And so since the earth is the Lord's and God is our ruler, humanity is accountable to God for our stewardship and our interaction with creation. Since God is the creator and owner and ruler, we should seek to care for the creation in the way that God calls for it. The thoughtful and proper care for creation is kind of the logical outworking of our love for God. So caring for what God made, which ultimately belongs to God. Humans are not independent actors with regard to creation because creation is God's. We will be judged by God if we mar, degrade, or destroy creation, and we have to act towards creation in the way that God calls us to. So we're to be stewards. We're to take care of what God has given us. Now, I think, as you know, some people take it too far. They go the opposite direction. They think that we should worship nature, that we should worship animals to the point where we're not to use them, we're not to do anything for them or with them, we're not to hurt trees or hurt animals and that sort of thing. And certainly, we don't want to hurt animals out of just spite, but they are for us to use for food. Certainly, at creation, We were actually vegetarians, is what it looks like. But after the flood, it was given that we could eat meat. So certainly, animals are there for use, to help man to work the land. They're there to help us for food. And certainly we treat them with the respect of being God's creation. But we do so in a way that we also use them for what God has given us to do. We're to be good stewards of those things. We're not to hurt them just to hurt. We're not to kill just to kill. But we use those things for our benefit and to help us to be good stewards. And the same thing would go with trees and nature and you name it. We are to use those things as God has given to us in order that we can benefit from them and subdue and multiply. So we use them as good stewards. So the word dominion literally means to rule or have power over. God has sovereign power over his creation, and he's delegated that authority to mankind to have dominion over animals. David references this truth when he says, "You made mankind rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet." And that's in Psalm 8:6. Humanity was literally to subdue the earth. We hold a position of command over it. We're placed in a superior role, and we're to exercise control over the earth, over its flora and fauna. Mankind was set up as the rulers of this world. All else was to be subjugated. Again, even though we're given that power, even though we're given that authority, it's given to us by someone who is over us. It is kind of a rental. We are to take care of things in the way that he would. We are to have godly wisdom when we talk about the created order. We to be very careful with how God commands us and the way he leads us. God's command to subdue the earth and animal life, in its command to have the mastery over all of it. True mastery of anything can't be accomplished without an understanding of the things that are to be mastered. In order for a musician to master the violin, he or she must truly understand that instrument, right? In order for mankind to attain mastery over the animal kingdom, we have to understand animals. We have to understand what they're good at, the way that they are to be used, that sort of thing. With the authority to rule comes the responsibility to rule well. There's an inherent accountability in the commands to subdue the earth. Man has a duty to exercise his dominion under the authority of the one who delegated it. So we have to understand this. Number one, that creation does what? What does it do for God? What does creation do for God? I know that's a weird question, but think about it for a minute. Does it glorify God? Creation glorifies God, does it not? When you walk out of your house and you see all of the beauty of this world, does that not take you into a place where you're like, wow, look what God has made? Look what God has done. The beauty of this world, and think about this is a fallen world. This world is marred because of sin, right? It's not perfect. It's not the way that it was meant to be. It's not the way it was created. And yet, when we walk out, we still see the beauty of God's creation. And when you look at that, it should, and I think it does, glorify God. It shows his power. It shows his majesty. It shows his creativity. I look in the mirror and I see a lot of his creativity every morning. You know, I mean, just the fact that we are here and we see the beauty of God's creation, it glorifies God. Not only does it glorify God, what else does it do? I said he was creative, so what else is he? Does it not reveal some things about God? Reveal his character? Reveal his nature? When you look at all of the things that he's created, it should reveal to you some of who he is. It should reveal to you the majesty and the glory and the amazing thought and creativity and all of that of who God is. So when we think about the created order, we ought to think about God, and we ought to think about who he is and that it glorifies him. And so if we are to be good stewards of those things, we are literally being good stewards of God's glory. We're being good stewards of what glorifies him. And so when we do things in a way that does not benefit that, we are marring that glory of God. Because creation is the means of God's revelation, and because of its inherent value and goodness being created by God, we should care for creation. There's two types of revelation that we have. We have general revelation, right? Which is what? That's what we're talking about here, right? Yeah, we have special revelation, which is this, God's word to us. And then we have general revelation. General revelation is everything you see that talks about that there is a God. Now, we need special revelation to tell us more and to tell us the salvation part of who God is, right? But creation, and this is why I have so much trouble with the thought of evolution and atheism, is just walking out of your house to see the complexity of everything that we have. And that's just with our own eyes. You start looking at the complexity through a microscope. You start looking at all of the things of just leaves. I mean, just the trees and the leaves themselves show unparalleled complexity. That's not to say the human life. Our human bodies, how complex are they? And to think that would just somehow happen by chance. That somehow there was a big bang and things just over billions of years finally came to what we are now by chance. I would tell you, if you believe that, you might go to the lottery because you have a better chance of winning the lottery than we do of being here because of chance. You do. You have a better chance of winning the lottery than you do of being here by chance. And so when we look at nature, it is God's revelation of himself that there is a God, that there is a creator. And so we need to be careful with how we interact with those things. It tells us of his inherent value and goodness being created by God. And so we need to care for that. We interact with creation in the way that preserves its capacity to reveal God, restores and rehabilitates those parts of creation that have been misused, and stands against uses of creation that destroy its revelatory role. According to the Bible, God's intentions for creation were not only to reveal God's character, but also to provide for all that God had made, including natural systems and non-human life needs. We see in Genesis that he gave not only the seeds or the fruit yielding seeds and the trees yielding fruit and that stuff to us, but he also gave those things for the animals to take care of, to use for food. So when we destroy and we just do things without any thought, we're taking and we're making problems for the natural systems that God has created. Provide for human physical needs, including food, water, shelter, clothing, energy. Provide for human and non-human life both now and into the future. So God's twin purposes for creation are to reveal God's character and nature and to provide for what God has made. Humanity's use of creation needs to promote, not compromise, the ability of creation to reveal God and to provide for humans and other creatures on the earth now and in the future. We do need to think about conservation. As Christians, we should think about conservation and taking care of nature to a certain extent. Again, now what I've said is there are people who take it to both extremes. There are people who will not do anything because they're so afraid and they worship it almost. It's almost an idol to them. And then there's people who just absolutely don't care and they'll just destroy anything in any way, shape, or form, and it doesn't matter to them. There's a fine line. There's a fine line. That's what we're talking about when we talk about peace with the created order. It is having that balance as Christians where, yes, we are to be stewards, we are to take care of, we are to care about the environment that we live in. We are to care about the animals and the nature that God has created. And we are to use those things, but use those things in a way that benefits us, the way that God provided for us, and the way that God intended for us to use them. And not be afraid to do that. Not be so unwilling that we put them on a pedestal, that we think that they're above anything else. But we are stewards, and so we have to have that balance. As Christians, we believe we understand some very unique things about our world, since we know its creator. Certainly, Jesus is creator and Lord over the earth, and we can't separate our relationship with Christ from how we act in relation to what he made. Jesus is reconciling all things to himself, including all of creation, thereby signaling creation's eternal importance. Jesus commands us to care for the poor and the oppressed, the least of these. The least of these often depend most heavily on creation's healthy functioning. Anyone concerned with the least of these must pay special attention to care of creation. So certainly, the idea here, when it talks about peace with the created order, just to kind of sum it up, and I know we're probably going to get out of here early tonight because this was just a very small portion. The idea here is that we are balanced in how we use God's created order. We're very careful with it to the point where we know that God has created it. He has created it for our use, and we use it in that way. But we don't go to the point where we don't care about it either. We use the things that God has created for us, but we are concerned about the environment. We are concerned about conservation. We are concerned about those things to the point where we can benefit from it into the future as well. That it's not just for us now, it's also for our future generations. And so there's a balance there. Any questions on peace? We're done with peace, and I'm going to introduce you just real quick to the next one, but any questions, thoughts on peace before we finish that one up? Man, y'all are quiet bunch. It was all that food, that good food we ate, wasn't it? Everybody's still in their nap phase. I am too, don't feel bad. That was a good lunch. All right, so we're done with peace. And you say, oh, yay. Yeah, we're over to war. That's not a fruit of the Spirit, though, so thankfully that's not one we have to go for. But we're to everybody's favorite one now, though. Begins with a P as well. Anybody got a clue as to what that one might be? Woo, patience. That's a fun one. That's the one everybody's going to be like, yeah, we're just going to skip for a few weeks. We'll be back when you get through with patience. So patience. Oh, brother. Just a few quick facts, and then we'll dismiss off of patience. I want to kind of introduce it to you. There are two Greek words actually translated as patience in the New Testament. The first one is hupomene. It means kind of this remaining under, as if one bears up under a burden. It refers to the steadfastness in difficult circumstances. When you are under a burden, when you are under a heavy discouragement, that sort of thing, that you bear under that you are steadfast in it, that you continue in it. We'll talk more about that later, but just to introduce that to you. And then the second one is makroth umea. Yeah, try saying that a few times. It is what is used in Galatians 5:22, and it's a compound form of makros, which means long, and thumos, which means passion or temper. So a long passion or a long temper. The idea there is to have a long temper, the ability to hold one's temper for a long time. I think some of the spouses are doing like this, I do believe. I know mine is probably. She's looking at me like, boy, this is a good one for you. Her to me, not the other way around. That way I don't get in trouble tonight. Source, the King James translated as long-suffering. The Old Testament, interestingly enough, talks about long nose of God. That's what the it's what it translates to, is the long nose of God, which is interesting to think, but it's a Hebrew idiom. It's kind of like when we say it's raining cats and dogs, right? It's not really raining cats and dogs. God doesn't really have a long nose. I mean, he may. I don't know. I've never seen Jesus, but he may have a long nose. I don't know. But the idea there is when you look at the Hebrew world, the idea was that when one would get angry, the nostrils would flare. It would get red. And so in Exodus 34:6, we see, then the Lord passed by in front of him and proclaimed, the Lord, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in loving kindness and truth. So the spiritual example of anger we find in Psalms 18:8. It says, smoke went up out of his nostrils, and fire from his mouth devoured, coals were kindled by it. So that's a good description of anger, that smoke went out of his nostrils and fire from his mouth. So is patience, let me ask you this, is patience optional for the Christian? Is it an optional thing? Some of you say yes, probably, because we're not as patient as we need to be, right? No, patience is not optional. Again, what have we been looking at? The fruit of the Spirit, right? If the Spirit lives in us, then these are things that should be in us as well. Now, let's be very careful, okay? We are not perfect creatures. And there are some of us who deal with things differently than others do. Some of us have more problems with patience or with peace or with love or with whatever the case may be, because we're not perfect. And the point of it is not to point at somebody, spouses, and say, you need to be more patient, right? The point of this is to say, look, this is the bar that Jesus sets. This is the bar that God sets, is that we need to be all of these things in the way that he was. Now, he also knows that we'll never get there this side of heaven. But the point is that we're moving closer to it. That you are more patient today than you were yesterday. Even if it's minuscule, even if it's a small amount. We are more loving today than we were yesterday. We are more at peace with those around us or with whatever we struggle with. We are more long-suffering than we were yesterday. This is not a point your finger at yourself and get yourself down. It is to hopefully show you that we all need work, that none of us are perfect, and that we all need Christ. We all need the Holy Spirit who lives in us to help us to be better at these things than we are. And so it's not optional. Most people would agree that patience is a high moral virtue. Most people in here would say, yes, I would love to have patience. Most people in here would say that, I think. I think we all would. But most would agree also that they're not in a hurry to obtain it. Why? Why is it that patience is not one of those things that we're in a hurry to obtain? Because we have to go through the hardships to obtain it, do we not? We don't want to have to go through those things. But let me end with this. Stop and think about this. Do you honestly think that this life, with all of its hardships, would be any less hard if we didn't pray for patience? Would this life be any less hard than it already is if we didn't ask for more patience? I don't think so. We already have enough hardships, do we not? So what is it just to ask for patience and say, God, produce in me patience? We're already going through hardships. We're going through things that are difficult. Sin has destroyed the way in which this world was supposed to work. It has marred it. And so no matter what, guess what, guys? We're going to go through hardships. It's a fact of life. Mark it down. You're going to go through hardships. Young people, if you haven't gone through hardships already, you're going to go through hardships. Ask your parents. Ask your grandparents. Jesus is there for you. God is there for you. But this life is filled with hardships. There's good to this life. There's value to this life. But it's not going to be any less hard just because you ask for patience or because you don't ask for patience. The best thing for us to do as children of God is to ask for that so that when those hard times come, when those hardships are inevitably rear up in our life, we have the patience to realize that God is there and that God is doing something through that, and God is going to take us through those things. And so we should ask for patience. As Christians, we should desire more patience. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We shouldn't be willing to not ask for it. Rather, we should ask for it because it's not optional and because we need it to get through this life. How much easier is it when you have patience to get through those hardships than when you don't? So we'll end with that. Any thoughts on patience? Everybody's like, no, we're not very patient right now. All righty. Well, we'll get you out a little early tonight. Let you go home and enjoy time with your family. Again, I want to say thank you. It is a big blessing to our heart, my family's heart, for you guys with everything that you've done for us. And to think we've only been here 4 months, and you guys have opened up and loved on us as much as you have. I want to say thank you. Because I just can't imagine, I hope that we have a long, long time together and we can enjoy loving on you and enjoy you guys being amazing like you guys are. So thank you all very much. And if there's anything that you ever need, guys, know we're here for you. We want to be here for you. We desire to be here. So if you need anything from us, unless it's $1 million, I can't help you with that. But there are limits. But for the most part, if there's anything that we can ever do for you guys, that goes for all of you. That doesn't matter how young, how old, it doesn't matter. We're here for you, and we desire to open up our hearts to you. So let us know if we can do anything for you anytime. Any thoughts? Everybody's like, nope, we're blank. All right, guys, let's, I'm sorry? Yeah, we were talking about that. We're not going anywhere. I know sometimes some of the pastors may have gone to visit family. So yeah, we can go ahead and have church Wednesday night for those who want to be here. If you want to spend time with family and getting ready for Thanksgiving, I understand that too. But we'll go ahead and have church Wednesday night. So. My family doesn't want me there. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, guys, you have become our family too. I love my family, and I'd love to be there, but it's hard traveling with 4 kids all the time. So we're just going to enjoy being here with you guys. We'll be over for turkey sometime during the day, so just know. No, we'll probably knock on your door at some point in time. So. All righty. All right, guys, let's go ahead and pray, and we'll be dismissed. Brother Jim, would you dismiss us, sir?
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. It's been a good day. Just ask that you would just continue to bless us, my children, and especially be with us as we leave your house and go out into the world. May we be the example that you would have us to be. Just watch over us and care for us. In Jesus' name, we ask.